as an influence, and I have been studying Tibetan Buddhism and practicing Tibetan Buddhism since the late 80s. And it all just came together in this way of practicing and sharing yoga.
That was Cyndi Lee. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Yogi Misfit Sessions. I'm Danny Pamplun, and I am your host. Today I have session 131 with the one and only Cyndi Lee. Now, I actually haven't ever met Cyndi Lee in person, but I have practiced with her and studied with her a ton online. A good friend of mine actually introduced me to the Cyndi Lee, and I just think she's an incredible and amazing human. I've learned a lot. She's one of the main reasons why I teach Restorative. And overall, we had a really, really, really great conversation. We talked a little bit about the journey of Restorative-ish, and then we talked more about her Buddhist background and how she brings the teachings into yoga. And really, I think right now more than ever, having the permission and the resources and tools to be embodied and to really tune in is super awesome. So she gives some insight on that. She's up to some really, really, really cool things. She's got a little mindfulness retreat starting in August. I'll leave that in the show notes down below. And yeah, it was just really, I was totally fangirling when I was talking to her because I think she's amazing and great. So I hope you all enjoy this discussion as per usual. Don't forget to leave a comment, a review, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. It helps. And you can always head to our show support page on the website, dannypamplun.com/support, and help keep the show going. Without further ado, here goes session 131 with Cyndi Lee. Cyndi Lee, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm happy to be here with you.
So I'm super excited to talk to you. Our mutual friend, Serena, knows my excitement. I feel like I know somewhat you. I've never hung out with you in person, but man, I've taken a lot of your things online. I teach Restorative because of you. I tell the same jokes because of you.
Oh boy.
I just adore you. I think you're the best. And, you definitely don't know this, but your training really has changed me as a teacher.
Wow.
Online. I was not a big restorative person. I actually was super anti it for a really, really, really long time. I tried jumping on the train. It just didn't work. And then I found you, and actually, I talked to Serena, and Serena was like, I remember I sent her the message. I was like, tell me about this Cyndi. She's like, love her. So I went off her recommendation and totally just fell in love with you, and then started following all of your stuff online. So I think you're the cat's meow.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for telling me that. That feels good because, when you put things online, you don't really know, if anybody is getting anything from it, and just unless they tell you. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think we forget how many people that we impact as, teachers, and we don't always, not that we need the validation, right? But it is nice to know sometimes, oh, okay, I am doing the thing.
Yeah. Something landed. That's good.
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of, students that practice with me that are probably extremely thankful for you as well. I now teach Restorative 3 days a week, and that to anyone hearing that, it's like Danny now teaches Restorative is like, what?
Why didn't you want to do Restorative at first?
Because I'm type A, and
Yeah.
I'm the Vinyasa king. I need chaturanga because I don't need, because that's asking me to sit still.
You know what? That's really interesting to me because when I first opened my studio, Om Yoga Center in New York in 1998, right after that, I'd say 2 or 3 months into it, Judith Lassiter came and did a workshop at my studio. Yeah. And she taught restorative. She didn't teach a restorative training, but she taught a restorative class, among other offerings. And at the end of it, she said to me, you should really have restorative on your schedule all the time. And I said, I would like to, but I don't think it will fly. because it's really an advanced practice in a way.
Right.
And over the years of, dropping seeds, eventually we had a restorative class every single day,
Right.
after a few years. It takes a while to get there.
Yeah, I didn't really, I didn't get it. It's funny enough, I was supposed to be in Judith's training this week here in San Francisco. Yeah, it was actually last week. It was supposed to be in San Francisco, but, obviously that didn't happen.
Right.
But I wasn't a fan of it because I didn't get it. And also again, I'll say I didn't really understand that it was allowing me to rest and be present and not sleep until I heard it from you. And then as I started practicing it, funny enough, I got stronger by practicing less vinyasa and practicing more restorative.
Oh, I love that.
Seriously. I make jokes about it all the time. People are like, wow, handstand and you can do these poses. And I'm like, yeah, the funny thing is I do less. I don't work out more. I've been eating crappier and getting less sleep.
Well, I'm not going to talk about your diet then, but, it's interesting because I think, maybe what that means is that the ability to be, as you said, to be present and to be awake, but to be dropping in at the same time and into your parasympathetic nervous system, and to downregulate it is a support for being more active. And it teaches us that, we talk about Tadasana and Shavasana as the bookends of the practice, but they're inside each other,
right?
In different ways. And so when you do a handstand, which is just Tadasana upside down, but you take that kind of, non-aggressive kind of open approach to it, you can probably hang out up there longer too.
Yeah, I think for me, it's the nuance of the awareness, right? With, and it's the telltale story of a yogi, right? You don't know until you know. But where I was thinking, okay, if I do chaturanga, I'm getting stronger, I'm working out, I feel tired, blah, 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 blah. Or I could just do, one solid movement and pay really close attention and find all the little nuances of activation. And one of those equates 100 of the other things.
Yeah.
And so for me in the restorative practice, one, it sets me up to rest, but two, it sets me up to pay attention. So just piggybacking off what you said, yes, when I am upside down, I go upside down less. But when I'm up there, I'm way more present.
Yeah. It is the evolution of a yogi, because it's about, getting more interested. And it's just a natural maturation process, or we could even say spiritual maturity, to be more interested in not just what we do, but how we do what we do or why we do what we do. And I think if we don't get to that place, then we just get bored with yoga and, have to do something else, play golf or something.
Yeah. Well, and I think it just begins in the inquiry, right? When you start to get more interest, it's literally the yoga philosophy starting with your body. Yeah. You can start to ask yourself the questions of how you pay attention and then how, on the physical level, because that's something you can relate to. And then you go a little bit further and further and we can go down this rabbit hole for quite a while.
Yeah, but it is a big evolution point because, if we don't have a practice like this that says whatever's happening is worth being with, and that we can find a stable place. You could have a handstand within, external chaos,
right?
That we think it's worthy, that our joy and our sadness, and our pleasure and our pain are all equally worthy of us having a direct experience of. That's different than, when you first start out and you're like, this hurts, so I don't like it. Or that, is boring, so I don't like it. And we just ignore what we don't like. That's a real paradigm shift, to take interest in all of it.
Right. Cyndi, I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, your evolution and I want to hear about Om Yoga. I know you've got some really cool stuff in the works with Om Yoga. Specifically, you're doing a little more work with the Dharma of engaged yoga. So the two-part to it, I want to hear about your evolution and then where this the Dharma of engaged yoga is going and a little more about it.
Okay. Well, gosh, if I tell you about my evolution, it will take too long. This is my birthday today, and I
Oh my gosh, happy birthday.
thank you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm 67 today, which is
Happy birthday, Cyndi.
thank you. But that's like really wow, getting up there. And so there's a long story.
Right.
But well, I started yoga when I went to college when I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a hippie, and I went to college on the beach in Southern California. And you had to take a PE class. Mm. So I didn't want to do volleyball or anything because I was too kind of skinny and wimpy. And so I took yoga. Mm-hmm. And, it was so incredible because the teacher, I wish I knew this teacher's name, and I don't know his name, but he was a real yogi, and he had us doing kriyas and fasting, and we went on a retreat in Joshua Tree Desert, and all these things that I don't think college yoga teachers can do anymore. Mm-hmm. But we were doing all of this, and we were going to Swami Satchidananda's Self-Realization Fellowship down at the beach, and so it was a really incredible experience, and I just never stopped doing it.
Right.
From that age. But it didn't take, I didn't want to be a yoga teacher particularly. I was a dancer, and I went to New York to be a dancer, but you have to have a job. Mostly if you're a dancer doing something else. And I was the worst waitress in the world. So I started teaching yoga. And then when I decided not to dance anymore, I just started teaching yoga full time. And then I realized that the kind of yoga that I wanted to teach was really deeply informed by my Buddhist practice. I mean, I don't think I realized that. I think it just happened. It wasn't like I thought, what could be a niche in the marketplace? I never thought of that. I never even knew any way to think of that. But I had my dancing as an influence, and I had been studying Tibetan Buddhism and practicing Tibetan Buddhism since the late 80s, and it all just came together in this way of practicing and sharing yoga. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to call it. I knew what it wasn't for a while, and then I knew what it was. And it was, like a braid of vinyasa, which I really take to heart the definition of vinyasa as to place in a special way.
Yeah, sure.
It's an expression of cause and effect. One thing leads to the next, and how does that happen? And interdependence and impermanence, all these ideas to me are wrapped up in vinyasa. Mm-hmm. And then precise alignment, mm-hmm. And mindfulness and compassion, from the Buddhist tradition. And so I'm still doing that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then how did Om Yoga, I guess, in your evolution and when you started to create, how did it come about?
Well, it just came about like that. I mean, that I started a studio. I rented a space mm-hmm. on 14th Street in 1998. And it was really gross and funky. And it had been an after-hours gay club before we moved in there. And, so we just had to kind of repaint it and fix it up a little bit. But sure. I think a lot of the people that went to the club also came to the yoga studio. I mean, it was in the neighborhood. And so then I just started teaching this way that was, not too tight, not too loose. Mm-hmm. If you could think about, extremes of yoga offerings, and some are very devotional, and the asana is quite soft. Mm-hmm. And then there's others where it's super hardcore, but and I like, really moving and sweating, but the positions were very tense and held. And I felt like I wanted to do something that was more in the middle path between those, because I was doing that in my own practice at home. So I started offering that in the studio, and it worked. And the studio was there we were there for 5 years, and then we moved over to Union Square, and we were there for 10 years. And in 2012, I closed the studio and I moved away. But that's still who I am and what I offer. And it's expanded because I've gotten older and I'm interested in more sustainable practices as well.
Sure.
But it all can come into those same building blocks of the vinyasa, alignment, and mindfulness and compassion.
Mm-hmm. How then did you, I guess, through the evolution of all of again, we all go through it. How did the evolution of the program that's coming, it's the Dharma program that we're starting to step into. How and why?
How and why?
Yeah.
Well,
because there's a lot there. There's like a lot of meat and potatoes in that program.
There's a lot of meat and potatoes, or maybe tofu.
Yes.
Right?
There's a lot of dal and vegetables.
Well, so I started working with my root guru, Gelek Rinpoche, in the late 80s. And I've just been a very passionate and, I could always be more dedicated, but a pretty dedicated Buddhist student and practitioner. Mm-hmm. And over the years, I also had opportunities I was invited to teach yoga for Zen deep retreats upstate at Daibo Zendo. And I really fell in love with the Zen practice as well. And after I left New York, I didn't have a yoga community anymore. I moved to Central Virginia, and there just wasn't, anything here. And so I decided to take a Zen Buddhist chaplaincy training.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Casually.
Yeah, just casually. I signed up for it. They accepted me, and there I went.
What are you doing next week? Well,
yeah. Well, actually, I've been thinking about going to this place, Upaya Zen Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico, mm-hmm. for years.
Okay.
But, whenever they had a retreat with Roshi Joan, who's the abbot there, Roshi Joan Halifax, I already had a booking. I'm sure that's the story of your life as well.
Yeah.
And so on my birthday, when I turned 60, my husband, who was just my boyfriend then, he was freaking out. He didn't know what to give me because, you got to give somebody something pretty special for their 60th birthday.
Sure.
And so he said, I'm going to send you on a retreat. I'll just pay for the whole thing. And I thought that was like the worst present in the world because, I was already going retreats all the time.
Right.
But it spurred me to go on a deep retreat called Rohatsu and at Upaya. And when I was there, I knew I wanted to be there and I wanted to work with Roshi Joan. So I took this training and it was very deep and very powerful. And I became ordained as a Zen Buddhist chaplain. So this, kind of took my yoga, which I wouldn't say it's ever been a conflict, but in a way, for many years, I thought of working with the body as a vehicle for getting to know your mind, as a vehicle for getting to cultivate the relationship you want with yourself so that you can then live into that in the world. And so I always wanted to do more Buddhism, but I was running a studio and teaching a million classes and doing that thing. Mm-hmm. So I went and took this training, and it's come into my teaching even more. So the kind of workshops I teach now are things like the Dharma of engaged yoga and mindfulness of the whole body and, mendfulness and mindfulness and sustainability and these kind of ideas. So I decided to rewrite my whole 300-hour teacher training and and call it the Dharma of engaged yoga, because Dharma has really kind of like two meanings. In yoga, we talk about the Dharma as finding your Dharma, finding your path that you were meant to live into.
Right.
And that's really what a 300-hour is about. It's like graduate school.
Yeah, it's the application of it. You learn the things. I always say it's the freshman year of college is 200 hours. You're going to get way too much information. You're not going to know what to do with it, digest it, and then think about what you want to major in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, but also the Dharma means the teachings. And I have felt for a while that in yoga, there's a lot of people doing service and seva and give back and, great work. But I do feel like it doesn't completely integrate into what we're doing on our mat. And how, if we want to be inclusive to everyone, we have to start with ourselves. Like if you don't like part of your body or you don't like part of your mind, it's pretty difficult to like everybody else. So, starting with ourselves and really doing the inner work of being engaged, and using the seminal teachings of yoga and of Buddhism to cultivate that view towards yourself, so that you don't take your dukkha, you don't take your undigested, kleshas and your own drama and barf it all over your students, basically. That's not good.
Wait, I've been doing it wrong this entire time.
Yeah. We had one teacher who said you can't clean the floor with a dirty mop, So
totally.
So this is really about, it starts with the inner work and really looking at the tenets of engaged work. Engaged Buddhism, this is born from the practice of engaged Buddhism, which is about recognizing that everything in the world is interdependent.
Okay.
And so, using our yoga practice, I think that's a really important concept and a view as a yoga teacher, to realize when people come into your studio that we're all part of each other.
Cyndi, let me ask you for those that are may not understand the difference. There's a very there's a line between, so that yoga specifically, we're talking here about the entire practice, everyone, and not just the asana, but the actual entire practice of yoga. And then we have the Buddhism. When you merge the two, what do you specifically think is the biggest difference? Like the mindfulness practices that you bring in from Buddhism, how does that shift and vary from the practices in yoga? I never learned in yoga how to do mindfulness practice. I was taught to meditate by sitting still, close your eyes, and don't move a muscle. And then later they say, okay, open your eyes, and that was it. It's kind of like I didn't get that. And the other aspect is, for example, ahimsa. That's the bottom line of yoga, right? That is the first yama and niyama, in that body of guidelines for ethical living, we could say. Yeah. Ahimsa, which is non-harming of self and others. And that practice, which is so pith and so important, is kind of a non-doing. I'm not going to hurt anyone. It doesn't say, I'm going to help. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to care. I'm going to be joyful when other people have wonderful things happen to them. That it doesn't make that leap, or else I didn't find that in yoga, but I found that in Buddhism. We start with, I'm not going to hurt anybody, but I'm also actually going to go out of my way to help people or beings, because we're all connected. How do we take all these practices, whether they're a little bit of yoga, a little bit of the Buddhism, a little bit of even the restorative, and make it sustainable?
Yeah. We practice. We just have to practice. I think you start with yourself and with a lot of curiosity, because a lot of times when we start to learn to meditate or become a yoga teacher, or really dig deep inside in any way, doing this kind of inner work. Because when you do inner work, you start to find your own biases. You get empathetic burnout. You can get confused, and I think that we have to really be kind and not look for a result from our practice. I get really irritated, I will admit, when I see things like yoga meditation, a 2-minute meditation to help you be a more inclusive person, a 2-minute meditation for anxiety, a 2-minute meditation to get over your divorce.
That's it? That's all I need?
I know.
Where did you, Cyndi, can you send me that one, please?
I know. I'll send you the link later. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm in.
You know what I'm saying? But it's instead of trying to get a result and to use our practices as a Band-Aid or an aspirin, to actually understand that these practices are just to help us be stable and open in, a very chaotic and mobile world. And so that requires being curious, getting to know yourself, being willing to do that, and just being kind of friendly and have a sense of humor. And remember that it's okay to have fun too.
It's also, I'm pretty sure I've said this on the show before, but I think in a society where just very similar to what you just said, 10-minute abs, do these 5 exercises for low back relief and you're done. Like the quick fix of, I just want this done and over with versus wanting to put in the work because it feels like work.
Yeah.
And also what I'm hearing from you a lot is, can you shift the paradigm? Can you shift the script? Can you make it a place of inquiry, right? Of wonder, of awe, versus I got to go do this thing and check this box and then be done with it.
Yeah. And, I think that what you're describing also is, we're looking at everything we think is wrong with us and we want to fix it. And we don't want to sit with it and be with it and recognize that everything changes all the time. Everything is impermanent, and that we're human and we're going to feel all different kinds of feels. And that's really interesting and rich. And I think also the work of it, it's not fun to meditate all the time. I mean, let's say it right out loud. But
sure.
I think that what you were talking about with restorative, where you learned to relax, but it had a purpose and a meaning for you. That's different, than having a specific agenda and a goal and a result. And I think sometimes we talk about aspiration or intention or motivation. And that can be very helpful also in this paradigm shift. Like, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? Is it just to fix my back? Okay. Is there something else I'm feeling? What is that?
Right. Yeah. At some point you would hope, at some point it becomes a place of refuge.
Exactly.
At some point it becomes, I am not a good person if I don't, practice. And I don't mean just get on my mat and do a chaturanga party. But if I don't, there's a whole thing that goes with it. If I don't wake up and, drink lemon water and sit and then meditate and, journal and maybe contemplate and then move maybe 2 or 3 poses, that's really what it looks like these days in the morning. I feel different.
Well,
whole, and I don't want to say it's like a codependency on it. It's actually, it's actually the opposite. If I don't do the thing, if I'm not embodied, right, and engaged in myself in that way, and those are the things that help me do that, I get engaged in the world.
Yeah. And, it's okay to be engaged in the world too, but that's your ground.
Right.
For doing that so that you don't dissolve, I
don't know. Cyndi, and maybe, you've seen this, probably you've been teaching a lot longer than I have for sure, but maybe you've seen it is it just that we're not ready because of age, because of experience, because of like, I think about it now, like, why was I not doing restorative this entire time? Why was I so resistant to it? Because now I am obsessed with it. I like can't get enough of it, in addition to my other,
Right.
rigorous practice and whatnot. But why do so many younger practitioners, it's almost as if we're afraid of these engaged practices.
Well, I think that there's a few reasons, and one is, sometimes when you're younger, you just have extra energy. Like you have more energy than you even need to get through the day, and so lying down doesn't feel like it's gonna, help you with that.
Right.
It's just too boring. It's not engaging, and I think it is an age thing, but also it's also about finding the right teacher and the right approach to that method. And I'm so happy that happened for you with me.
Yay! I love it,
I mean,
Cyndi.
that's really it. And, I think that these practices I really have faith in yoga. I really have faith in my Buddhist practices. I have faith in them, which means that I have faith in the process. And so I don't have to add a lot to them. I don't have to make them entertaining. I don't have to make them precious. And I think sometimes teachers that don't have that much confidence in the practice, or they haven't done it long enough, or, maybe that's just their teaching style, but they try to make it be too pretty and too precious. And, it's okay to just be us doing yoga, and, so sometimes that comes into these slower practices,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because, then you're not looking around a room being like, oh, well, I got to try harder because they're doing it harder. So,
yeah. Or, I'm supposed to read poetry and I'm supposed to feel spiritual now.
Yeah.
Instead of you're just tired and you're not, and you're lying down and you're putting yourself in a shape and you're being with that.
It's quite funny and interesting. Out of all the classes that I teach, I mean, my vinyasa classes are always really strong, and that's what most of my community expects that from me, right? They want to go in, they want to learn something, we do something, we sit for a little bit, we do the thing. But my restorative classes right now, specifically, given the state of everything, have been overwhelmingly busy. And it's. God knows how many times I've said it on the show in the last few months, but we don't have to make this sexy anymore.
Yes. And that's really interesting, because you were saying like our practice should be our refuge. And obviously you're creating a refuge, but it's so telling to me that it's restorative yoga that people are taking refuge in, because really, ultimately, our refuge is ourself.
Yeah.
And that's when you meet yourself, is in a practice like that.
Yep.
And it's also, you're learning to be kind to yourself. You're learning self-caring. You're learning tend and befriend, all these modalities. That's awesome. That's really great that's happening.
Cyndi Lee, you changed my life. Cyndi, I cannot wait. One day it's going to happen. We're going to meet in person. I'm going to give you the biggest squeeze. I'm going to learn from you in person. It's going to be amazing. I look forward to it. I also look forward to hopefully spending some time with you online. I know you've got a mindfulness retreat, a digital retreat coming up. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Yeah, I'm just calling it a mindfulness meditation mini retreat. And it's from August 7th through the 16th. So it's 10 days, but it's only 1 hour a day. So from 12 noon to 1 o'clock Eastern time for 1 hour. And I will give some short talks every day and instruction. And we'll sit together. And there's a magic in sitting with other people and developing a Sangha. And as you have experienced online, you still develop those connections. It's amazing. And so we'll start small, and by the end of the 10 days, we'll be sitting for most of the hour. And I think people will really have an experience that will support them, to refresh their practice or to start a practice.
I also think it's a great opportunity for people to utilize, what time that we have, but also the mental space that you will get from this is unlike anything else. And like you said, Cyndi, you're absolutely right. Sitting in Sangha is way more powerful than sitting by myself.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Even if it's, through a screen, like when I'm sitting with students that come to class.
Yes.
That is like, even those like, few minutes that I'm there with them, it's way more powerful than, it's just, you're in community, and you can't really put a price tag on that.
But yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Just saying. Yeah. So I'm doing that, and I'm excited about that. And then I have decided to take my 300-hour teacher training online for obvious reasons. And I've rewritten the syllabus a little bit. And I did that early this year, and then everything happened. And it seems really sort of timely. So it's called the Dharma of Engaged Yoga and the practice of sustainable Om Yoga Vinyasa. So, sustainable yoga is going to be a little bit slower and very specific, and it will be a way for us to take the inner work of engaged yoga into our own personal practice, and then learn how to, share that with others as we teach.
I love it. I think the more of this out there, the better. It's super important, and more than ever right now, it's super important to be able to have these practices to have, and even the experience to be able to learn more about it is, it's a gift to yourself. It's going back into that self-inquiry. So
yeah. And it feels like a gift to me, that people want to do this, because, we're all isolated.
Yeah.
And I love teaching online because, probably like you, I have students all over the world, and that we can all be together.
Mm-hmm. It's been a gift of COVID. In some ways, there have been a lot of students that I would have never met in my entire life.
Yeah.
There are 2 classes specifically that I teach every week now through a studio, and I've never met 85% of those people in person, and I know those people now.
Yeah.
I know those people. We sit together, we practice together. I don't know what I would do without this, my little online community. So I'm glad that you are bringing more people into community right now, because that's also a sustainable practice.
Yes. Yep. That's, we can just keep doing it, whatever the world, hands us.
Cyndi, I adore you. I am so glad that I get to speak to you today. I've had the biggest smile on my face this entire time. I meant what I said. I cannot wait to meet you in person and give you a big squeeze and a big thank you, and get to learn and study even more. You're great. I love you.
Yeah. Well, I really look forward to that day too. And it was great to meet you.
Yes. Same. Yeah, same.
I feel like we could talk for hours. So this is
great. Agreed. Well, to the next episode, this is Cyndi and Danny saying bye-bye.
Bye-bye.